friends. How are you today? It has been so long since I have been with you on Sewing in Slippers. So I want to welcome you and welcome everybody that's new to Sewing in Slippers with Sue. Today I'm getting back on track. Many of you know that I've been on vacation with my husband for 16 days. It's been a nice, long, restful, I shouldn't say restful. It's been a nice, long, wonderful vacation, but it was jam-packed full of wonderful sights around Austria. I had a fabulous time, and I am so excited and motivated to get back to work. So this is step one, coming on to Sewing in Slippers with Sue. So if you're new to Sewing in Slippers with Sue, I want to welcome you. We love to applique here at Sewing in Slippers. I'm Sue Pelland, and I love making applique quilts. But what I love even more than that is sharing my passion for applique with everybody out there in the quilting world. So if you enjoy applique or you think you might, you are in the right place, my friend. So I do see some of my friends coming on. Ellie's here and Kat's here. They're welcoming me back from my trip. Thank you so much. It has been a fabulous vacation. I'm full of excitement. I'm full of energy. I was so inspired by all of the patterns that I saw all around me as I was traveling. Do you do that too? Do you look at patterns in architecture, in upholstery, in carpeting, in everything you see? Do you see patterns? Do you see inspiration for your quilts? So today we're going to talk about getting back into the creative mindset. And I had a quote this morning from Albert Einstein, and I'm going to butcher it because I didn't take my phone with, I have my phone with me. So I took a photo of it on my phone because I didn't want to massacre the quote. So let me see what it says. Creativity is intelligence having fun. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful quote. Creativity is intelligence having fun. I love that because so many creative people think that they are creative in spite of a shortcoming someplace else, right? So many creative people think they're creative because they're not mathematical. They're not good with words. They're not good with technology. They're not the engineering sort, right? They don't have maybe the book smarts, or they maybe don't have what they think it takes to be really successful in an intellectual way. And so they put all of their energy into their creative side. Now, I want to challenge that. I think creative people are so intelligent. And I'm going to give you an example. When I watch a comedian, I love watching comedians. One of my favorites is Michael McIntyre. He is from England. He is hysterical. He's basically clean, nothing offensive pretty much in his humor, yet quick, witty, fun, on the spot, just so creative and so right there with just connections with people and making everything he looks at comical. That takes an incredible amount of intelligence. But I think we go back to our high school days where the class clown was probably somebody that you didn't consider very intelligent. So we always think of comedy as kind of an excuse or a coping mechanism for not being really smart, or not being very book smart, not being very great in school. So these kids come out with comedy instead to relate to other people. Well, I think that's a great parallel, that we have that misconception that creative people don't necessarily have what it takes to have that book smarts. And I totally disagree with that. I think creative people use their intelligence in a creative way, and they express themselves through what they see in the world creatively. So I just want to give you that little positive energy that if you find yourself being an artistic person, a creative person, I don't want you to think that you are any less in a different area. In fact, I think it takes more intelligence to put together that intelligence into a creative focus. So let me look at that quote again. I want to get it right. It was an Albert Einstein quote, and it says, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." So I hope that you are having fun this week with some applique quilts. I know that when I get back from a vacation, I have to get back and focus on my applique. It's really easy to get distracted with all of life's events and feel unproductive in making our applique quilts. So today I want to challenge myself, and I'm going to bring you all along with me on that mindset journey to get back into a focused mode for applique. So maybe you've had a lot of medical issues going on, or maybe you have had some family drama going on. Maybe it's springtime and you're feeling the overwhelming desire to do that spring cleaning or to get your garden in order, and you've taken your focus away from applique. So I want to give you a little acronym, FOCUS, to focus again on your applique projects, because they don't get themselves done, right? We have to really focus on our goals in order to get our applique projects done. So today is going to be mostly all about mindset. But I do have a little tiny creative project to work on you with that's going to bring us back to applique and to cutting. But I do want to show you what I'm talking about as far as that focus goes. So I've lost my screen that I wanted to share with you. So let me just get back to that screen, and I will, hold on. Okay, I want to get back to this screen where I can show you my focus acronym and talk you through that mindset challenge. So Tina, welcome from Louisiana. Anita from New York, welcome. Elaine, good morning. You're in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Mary, thank you. Thanks for welcoming me back. I so appreciate that. I want to just go to my project here, and oh, I'm so sorry. I had this up a moment ago, and then I got, I opened up a new tab and I lost the acronym that I wanted to show you, the little focus acronym, and now my computer is not cooperating. So if you know me, you know that I am the queen of technical difficulties. I am not very technical. That is one area that I struggle with. And it's not that I can't do it, it's that I have a mental block and I don't enjoy the technology. So I get a little hung up sometimes on the technology. So that's something that you need to know about me. I am really good when it comes to mindset. I'm really good when it comes to applique techniques. I love teaching. I love sharing my passion with all of you, but where I fall down is in the technology. But I've just found my focus acronym, and I want to share that with all of you. And I'm just going to share my whole screen, even though it's not just the page I wanted to share. So let's go ahead and do those settings and do a let's do present, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to share the acronym inspiration. All right, good. So we have a program called Ahead of the Curve here at Sue Pellin Designs. And Ahead of the Curve is a club. It's an organization. It's a community where we all focus on applique and we share our love of applique and we motivate each other and we do applique together. together. So that's one of the secrets to success, is to focus on your applique. Ahead of the curve is one of the ways that you can focus on your applique, because everybody in this club has that same goal as you, and they're all focusing on applique together. And by doing it together, it motivates all of us. But I just created this little focus acronym for our Ahead of the Curve members. I'll be posting it in the Ahead of the Curve and in my blog. And I just want to share that focus acronym with you. That stands for fuse, organize, cut. Of course, you can substitute create in there, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Use, and we're going to talk about that too, and then stitch for success. So let's go through each of these words one by one. Focus on applique means I have to get fusing. I have to start fusing some fabric so that I can use that fabric in my applique projects. Fusing your applique fabric is always the first step in a successful applique quilt. Of course, there are other steps. We're going to choose our fabric, right? But once you have decided on a project and you are ready to get started with that project, these are the action steps that we have to take. We have to fuse our fabric, and then we need to get that fused fabric organized and know where you're going to use it in your quilt. I don't know about you, but if I'm not organized, I don't get anything done. If I can't find my fabric, if I can't find my pattern, if I can't find the project that I'm working on and it's buried under other things, I don't get anything done. So fusing your fabric is absolutely the first step you need to take in a fused applique project. But then we've got to get organized so that once you have that fused fabric, we can get that into a situation where we're ready to cut, we're ready to create. By having all of those first steps done, by fusing your fabric and then getting organized, we are ready to create. We are ready to start cutting up that fabric and using it. It's wonderful to have a beautiful collection of fabrics chosen for a project. In fact, I've got a beautiful collection of fabrics right here. They are chosen from my next temperature quilt, but I haven't fused them yet. So they're going to sit on my shelf right now, and I can't use them. I can't get them organized. I can't even get started with my project until these are fused, which means washing, ironing, and fusing the fabric. Once those fabrics are fused, I know I need to use them, because once the fabrics are fused, right, you've added a lot of value to those fabrics. You've taken the time to wash them. You've taken the time to iron them. You've taken the time to fuse them. Now you are ready to use them. And how are we going to use them? We're going to cut them up and we're going to create. So that is our FOC. Use is the U. So we're going to utilize all of those fabrics that we have just created. And now we're going to create something gorgeous, and we're going to stitch those designs. And that is the biggest stumbling point for my quilts. I absolutely love to choose my fabrics, wash it, fuse it, get it ready to use, get it organized. I love to cut it, and I love to fuse that fabric down to create my designs. I'm using my fabrics. And at that point, sometimes I feel like I'm done. Right, I've got all these blocks created, like back on my wall right here. I've got all these gorgeous blocks created. I feel like I'm done. I'm 90% done. But unless I stitch, I'm not going to have success. So I want to challenge you all to try to put a little focus into your every single day. So you always have fused fabric on hand so that you can organize it, decide what you're going to make with it. You're going to cut it and you're going to create with it. You're going to use up all of that fused fabric, but you're not going to have success until you sit yourself down in that chair and you actually stitch. So that is my focus acronym. And today I need to focus on my Baltimore album quilt. I have all of the blocks The fabric is fused, I organized it, I cut it, I created with it, I used up all my fabric. And now it's sitting at this point where I need to stitch it for success. So today I'm going to focus on stitching. So when I talk about putting your kitchen timer on, and I always talk about using the year 24 and setting your timer for 24 minutes. What this means to me is I'm going to put my butt in the chair and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to stitch for 24 minutes a day. You will be amazed how much you can get done before that timer goes off. So yesterday I did it. I sat down in the chair and I stitched 2 sections of those grapes. I got 2 sections of grapes done in 24 minutes. So if I sit down again 24 more minutes, I'm going to have that block completely finished, and then I can move on to my next block. So in my Almost in Baltimore quilt, I've got about 8 or 9 blocks out of the 12 that are already stitched. And I only have 5 or 6 more to go ahead and finish the stitching. There are 16 blocks total. I don't even remember exactly, but I have 5 or 6 or 7 more that I haven't completed the stitching. So setting your butt in that chair, focusing, stitching is how you are going to achieve success and make beautiful applique quilts that are ready to show. I use my microwave timer for many of my activities during the day. Barbara, I love that. Your microwave is in the kitchen. It's always near you. Put your microwave timer on and you're going to achieve success at whatever you are working on. It's amazing that when we put a timer on, how much we can get done in that amount of time. For example, you get up in the morning, first thing I do is make my bed. It takes me 2, maybe 3 minutes to make that bed. Some days I say, oh, I don't want to make the bed. I do it every single day. It's so boring. 2 to 3 minutes. What is that in the course of your day? It's the same thing with that 24-minute timer. When you put that 24-minute timer on, it seems like, oh my gosh, I can't devote a whole half an hour to stitching. That's too much time. I could get so many other things done. But unless we put our butt in the chair for 24 minutes a day, we're not going to achieve success with our applique quilts. Nobody's going to stitch those for you. It's up to you to get that stitching done. So that is my little platform for today. We're going to focus and we're going to spend the next 24 minutes getting something done. Now here at Sue Pellin Designs, I love to teach you something new every time we get together with for Sewing in Slippers with Sue. So I'm going to set that 24-minute timer, and I want to show you something that I discovered while I was on vacation. I found a quilter, and I don't remember her name, and I apologize for that. I'm going to go find the freebie that she was giving away. All quilters that are using the internet are giving away freebies. Hold on, let me stop sharing here. Okay, all quilters that are using the internet to promote their products are giving away freebies. And we're all trying to think of what's a great freebie that somebody's going to love so that they'll sign up to get it. And then I can tell them more about my products. It's just how online business works right now, right? So I came across this freebie from a quilter, and I don't have her name and I don't have the freebie in front of me, but I'll tell you what it was. The freebie was take any 8-inch block and turn it into a 12-inch block by using this quick method. Now that quick method involved curve piecing and mitered seams. Well, I don't know about all of you, but curve piecing and mitered seams are something that I try to avoid. So I want you all to go and get that freebie. And I'm going to put that in the comments where to get that freebie. Because if you love curve piecing and you love mitered seams, this was a beautiful way to make any 8-inch square into a 12-inch block. But I thought we can make that easier. That's my job here at Sue Pellin Designs, is to take designs that I think are difficult and make them easier for all of you. And that's what I share with you here on Sewing in Slippers with Sue. So today I'm going to make that process a little bit easier. We're going to take an 8-inch block and we're going to convert it into a 12-inch block using a very easy method and some fused applique. So what do I need to do? I need to focus. I need to fuse some fabric. So let's go ahead and do that together. I'm going to, let's see if I can get my camera onto my workstation. And I apologize if I'm not focused quite right on my workstation because I've been away and my camera's gotten moved. There we go. So I need to fuse some fabric. I've got my little tiny iron here. I've got a little bit of this blue fabric, and I want to fuse this blue fabric, and my workstation is a little too far away from my plug, and I'm really struggling with getting the iron to reach. So pardon me while I fuse this fabric. In order to fuse my fabric, I'm going to use my applique pressing sheet. And I'm lucky enough to have 2 of these sheets. So the first thing I do is I make sure my applique pressing sheet is clean. Just rub your hand over it. Make sure you don't feel any of that fusible web sticking to your applique pressing sheet. Then I'm going to grab my fusible web and I'm going to cut it to the same size or slightly smaller than my fabric. Let me just go ahead and grab my scissors here and get this fusible cut to the same size as my fabric. Oh, by the way, I'm having applique school on Thursday this week. So if this fusing process is new to you, I'm going to go through it quickly right now. But during applique school, I go into detail about fusing, why I'm using Misty Fuse, my favorite fusible web, how it works, how to use it, how to fuse with the Misty Fuse, how to cut and stitch the way that I do to make my applique quilts. So applique school is a great time to learn my process, as well as here on Sewing in Slippers with Sue. But on Sewing in Slippers, I kind of assume you know some of the basics because most of the people that are watching have been with me for quite some time. Or if you're new to this, you're going to learn all about our applique club, where you can learn all of these techniques and you can practice them along with us. But the idea is we've got to get the fusible on the back of our fabric, and we're doing that with our applique pressing sheet. So now I've got my fabric fused and ready to go, and I'm going to set this fabric aside while I walk you through the process of making an 8.5-inch square. So that's a finished 8-inch block. How are we going to make that into a 12-inch square? Well, in order to make 8 inches into 12 inches, we need to add 4 inches. But with our seam allowances, I'm going to give you the measurements so that we end up with a finished 12-inch block. So the measurements are, we're going to start with an 8.5-inch square for our center block. We're going to cut 2 pieces that are 8.5 by 2.5, 8.5 by 2.5, and we're going to eliminate those mitered seams. And I'll show you in the diagram where she makes her mitered seams. They're beautiful, but they're not at all necessary when you have the same color fabric here and here. You can just do a straight seam here instead of a mitered seam. So we're cutting these pieces on the sides 2.5 by 12.5. So these are all the components of our 12-inch block, starting with an 8.5-inch square. So why am I doing this all in white? I'm imagining that this is either a pieced square that I want to take from 8 inches to 12 inches, or this is an appliqued square, and I want to add onto that to make that applique square bigger. So basically what this is, it's a setting technique for creating a setting for your 8-inch blocks to make them fit on a 12-inch block diagram. So I'm going to take this center piece right here and I'm going to put that aside. Now I'm going to take my fused fabric, and this will make sense to you once I show you how we're going to make our 8-inch square into a 12-inch square. Now I've just fused this fabric, so it's still a little bit tacky, but I'm going to go ahead and trim up the edges of that fabric to make them nice and straight and make sure there's no fusible web hanging out those edges that's going to end up sticking to my iron. So all those little fusible web edges, I'm getting rid of those. So I just want to trim down my fabric. And while I'm trimming it down, I'm also making it straight and square. Now that's not critical, but I do like starting with a straight and square piece of fabric so that when I start measuring, everything makes sense. I don't have these weird angles when I start cutting out my fabric. So in order to do a really unique setting on an 8-inch block, excuse me, I'm going to use my 8-inch Leaves Galore tool, and I'm going to cut out some 8-inch half melons. Now, I don't want a full melon. I'm just going to use a half melon, and the setting that I'm creating is going to look like I'm setting my 8-inch block into a circle. And when I show you that diagram that she had, this is what she was doing with curved piecing. We're not going to curve piece this quilt. We are simply going to do this with fusible applique. So what am I doing? I'm cutting an 8-inch half melon, and I'm doing that by adding a 1/4 inch beyond the half melon line. So I've got a half melon line right here. I'm putting that a 1/4 inch away from the edge of that fused fabric. And I'm cutting off my little tail end so that I end up with an 8-inch long half melon. That's a half melon plus a 1/4 inch. Now, quite honestly, a better way to do this would have been to start with an 8-inch piece of fabric. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this down to 8 inches. Let me just make sure I'm doing that correctly. Yep, my 8 inches is right here. Let's start with 8 inches, and then it'll be easier to show you how to cut the next 2 melons. Well, I used the edge and that straight line in order to cut my melon before. So I need another straight line. So let's go ahead and trim away this excess fused fabric so I have a straight line once again. So I'm putting my straight edge here and I'm trimming away my excess. Okay, I'm going to do it on the other side as well. And this is more fabric than I need. I could actually make 2 blocks with this 8-inch square. But I only need to make 1 right now. So I just grabbed an 8-inch wide piece of fabric and I'm going to cut 2 more melons. So we're going to put that 8-inch line on the 1/4 inch line. I can use my board to do that. I can put the edge of my fabric here on the board so it's on a straight line. Then I can put this centering line right here that has the 8 running through it on that 1/4 inch line. So I know I'm just adding a 1/4 inch. Go ahead and make that next curve. Now we're going to straighten this out. Use the lines on the board. We're just straightening out this edge, so we only have to go as deep as that little curve was. See, there's hardly any waste at all. And now we can put it back on a straight line. Use that 1/4 inch. I didn't cut straight across, so let me cut it straight across first. I was using my eye instead of the lines on the board, but let me straighten that out. Now I'm going to put that 8-inch line on the 1/4 inch line, so I know I'm adding exactly a 1/4 inch, and make that curve again. So I can continue that process all the way across this fabric. Now here's a quick tip for you. If you had 4 of these pieces of fabric, 4 of these 8-inch squares, I can cut this way through 4 layers of fabric at a time. So instead of cutting out 4 individual melons, half melons, I could do 4 at once. And then that way I can make 4 blocks at a time. So let me set aside my cutting mat now, and let me grab that pressing mat back up to my workstation. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take those 8.5-inch side pieces, and we're going to be adding those on first. But what I want to do is I'm going to apply my melons to that piece first. So the edges are just going to match up. You notice I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance here and a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. I'm centering that melon on that sashing fabric. Let me press that in place. Okay, whenever I press applique, I do it from the other side as well, making sure I'm really getting a good bond with that Misty Fuse. So that is either the top or the side, either way. I'm going to make another one the exact same way. Center this, 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here. That's my seam allowance. I don't want the fusible in that seam allowance or it's going to get bulky. So that's why cutting an 8-inch square, cutting your melons from the 8-inch square, or just making sure that you cut at the end of the 8-inch melon so that you don't have those little tail ends fusing on your seam allowance. Get those cut right down. So I'm going to add the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to take the 2 sides. Well, the 2 sides are a little more tricky because this is 12.5. So we actually need to find the center here. Then we're going to find the center of our melon. So we're just going to get the center of our melon right here and match those 2 centers. Or you could measure from here to the end, measure from here to the end, and make sure that they're the same. Now let's test that. Let's make sure that those are even. And yep, that looks good to me. So we're going to just press this one in place, turn it over, press it from the other side as we're getting our next one ready. So we've got that 3rd side. And now we're going to do our 4th side. Finding the center of our melon, finding the center of our sashing strip, matching those 2 together, and pressing that in place. Okay, so instead of curved piecing, we are going to go ahead and we are going to applique these pieces down. What does appliquing mean? It means we need to stitch, right? We've got to sit our butt in the chair and stitch these applique edges. So I'm going to chain stitch. I'm going to stitch this one. I'm going to put this one right in behind it. I'm going to chain stitch this one. I'm going to stitch this one, and I'm going to stitch this one. After these are all blanket stitched, then we're going to piece this block together. We're going to piece this 8.5-inch piece to our 8.5-inch block, piece this 8.5-inch piece to our 8.5-inch block, and then we're going to do the long sides. You'll know that once you have this 1/2 inch seam allowance here, it's a 1/4 inch, but on each edge, there's a 1/4 inch. So you're taking off a 1/2 here, you're taking off a 1/2 here. So this is going to fit perfectly, and this is going to fit perfectly. Now we have taken a beautiful either appliqued or pieced 8.5-inch block, and all of a sudden it will fit in a 12-inch block layout for a quilt. So I want to share with you some of the quilt designs where I have used this technique. So let me remove this, hold on, let me come back to you. I go to my settings and I come back to my camera, wrong camera. Okay, if I come back to you here, I want to show you some of the block designs that I've been able to make with this technique. And I may run out of time. That's okay. I do want to show you what I've been working on. So let me go into EQ, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I've been working on by using this technique. So let's see, this technology gets me every time, but let's see if I can share my EQ files with you. And what I made from that is called 8-inch blocks into 12-inch squares. That's the name of the EQ project that I created. So let me share once again my second screen. So we're going to stop the first share. We're going to start another share. And let's share this window with you. Okay, good, good. So here is my EQ program. So I'm going to open up this EQ program and show you some of the quilts that I created with this technique. So using an 8-inch square, I can use my 8-inch Leaves Galore tool to make those into round circles. Now, when I did this one, I set this on point. And this was just a very, very basic 8.5-inch applique block. It kind of looks a little Christmas-y. And so I made this 8.5-inch block design, set it in with that setting technique, and then set that on point. I like this quilt set on point. I thought it really adds something to the design, but you can see how it's set on the square would be just as effective. So let me go in and search for other quilts that I have made with this basic technique. So here it is set on point. Here it is set on point with an alternating block. So this was set on point, but it wasn't set block to block. It was set with a strip in between. So I love this for a Christmas quilt. And I have hundreds of these different designs laid out here. And you can see as I'm playing with them, I just save all of the different options so that I can recolor them and look at what they might look like if I made a quilt that way. So now I took out some of the blocks and I set it on point with those cornerstones with corners, and I just love the effect. Now here I added little leaves appliqued into those corners. So not only did I put the applique in the center here, but I also put a leaf shape going out to the corner. Now I didn't do it at this stage. I would actually add those leaves after I put this piece on the block. I would actually sew this onto the block, take away this seam allowance right here, and then from the seam allowance, I would put the leaf from point to point. So that would make it really fast and easy to make this to make this quilt. Elaine says, stop tempting us. You know what, Elaine? I love EQ because I can make all the quilts that are in my head without having to actually make them. Then if I'm really tempted, I can go ahead and execute the quilt. But look at this one. This is a different 8-inch applique block. I set this as a circle inside of the 8-inch block. And then I set the circle inside of a circle and I made these green wreaths. So this is just playtime on my computer. These are not quilts that I will probably ever make, but it's a lot of fun to play with EQ. Look at all your color combinations that you can do. And yes, I'm very tempted. I want to make all of these quilts, but I have to pick and choose and EQ lets me do that. Then I get to recolor the block every different way possible. I can even scan in my fabrics and add the fabrics into the quilt to see what the quilt is going to look like before I make the quilt. So EQ is a great, great design tool. If any of you would like these EQ designs, I can share the files with my members. So Ahead of the Curve members, if you want any of these EQ files, let me know and I will share the EQ files with you. Now, I knew the applique on that wreath pattern was going to be a lot of work, so I took off the wreath. I just did the circle inside the circle and made a very modern looking quilt. Isn't that fun? So these circles give you a lot of playtime, a lot of things you can play with, and the EQ program makes that so easy to play. I'm just going to share a few more. And I do want to tell you that I designed 54 quilts. 54 quilts while I was sitting on the airplane, and I only had one battery life for my computer. There's my 24-minute warning. I still have 15 minutes. I like to quit around 12 o'clock. So I'll show you a few more of my quilts, but I won't be doing any more sewing today. I won't be doing any more designing today because my 24 minutes is up. But I love EQ. I can test out all these beautiful large floral prints in the background. It's so much fun. This quilt I love, and it's just lemon leaves and 3-inch leaves inside that 8-inch square. So these are such fun quilts to play with. This is what I do on the airplane when I can't do anything else. I play with all of these designs. And yes, I make tempting quilts for me and for all of you to play with in the future. This is how I design quilts that I will be making into classes so that for our Ahead of the Curve members, you get to take a class every month with me, or if you're at the gold level and the platinum leaf level. When I'm on vacation, I can't get to my sewing machine. So when I focus, I'm focusing in on designing. I design with EQ and I create new projects that we can play with together. So yes, Elaine, I love to tempt you with new projects because I'll be teaching some of these projects in Ahead of the Curve over the next year. So I had a fabulous vacation. Not only did I get to see a good part of Austria, I actually got to 4 different countries. It was a fabulous experience. And the whole time I was there, I was gathering inspiration for future quilting designs. Some of you know that I'm getting my long arm quilting machine in a week or so. So I was gathering inspiration for quilting designs, but also for these beautiful applique designs as well. This design actually came from the flooring tiles at the Parliament building in Budapest. This was an idea that I grabbed from that venue. Then I was looking at settings in circles, and I came across that free PDF from another quilter in order to get me to sign up for her newsletter. I did that because I loved what she was doing, setting an 8-inch block inside of a 12-inch block using a circle. I knew I could make that easier for all of you. So I'm going to share her freebie with you. I'm going to encourage you all to go over and get her freebie. I'll put it in the comments, but I'm not going to use her instructions. I'm going to go ahead and modify that to include rotary cut, fusible applique, making this whole process so much easier and so much fun for all of my students. So this is one last pattern I wanted to share with you. I just kept changing the block inside that 8.5-inch block. I did not do any pieced blocks, but a beautiful use of this technique is to use your pieced blocks leftover piece blocks from another project. If you have 5 of them, you can make a quilt like this with just 5 blocks. If you have 3 of them, a beautiful table runner using just 3 blocks. Using this setting makes those blocks special. So I'm going to challenge you to either create a series of 8.5-inch blocks with applique or create a series of 8.5-inch blocks with piecing. And they can all be exactly the same. They can all be different. By using this setting, you're going to unify those blocks and make them belong all in one project. So I hope you've had fun with this technique with me here today. If you've enjoyed what we've done here today, and if you've enjoyed the inspiration or maybe the acronym FOCUS, fuse, organize, cut or create, use those things that you've cut or created by sitting down and stitching. Put that butt in the chair. Sit down and stitch your creations, and you're going to have beautiful applique quilts in the shortest time possible. By fusing and rotary cutting, we're using that focus method to get our applique quilts done faster, easier, and with gorgeous quality results. Now, if you liked what you've seen here today, you'll want to come to Applique School. We're doing a new take on Applique School. We are not doing hand applique, glue applique, and fusible applique. We're going to focus on fusible applique. We're still doing 3 sessions, but we're doing 3 sessions all in one day. The fusing, the cutting, those things will repeat for every session. So if you can only come once, you're going to see my entire technique. But as far as the cutting goes, we're going to do different cutting for every single class. So if you come at 9 in the morning and you come again at 3 in the afternoon, and you come, 11 in the morning. If you come at 11, you come at 3, and you come at 9 at night, you're going to get 3 different cutting techniques. And I'm going to be sharing some of my beautiful quilts with you, also some of my students' fabulous work. So I'm really looking forward to Applique School on Thursday this week. We're going to do it on Thursday at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Even if you are already a fan of my techniques, I encourage you to come to Applique School so you can share that enthusiasm and share that love and share our Rotary Cut Applique technique with hundreds of other quilters. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Sue Pelland for Sewing in Slippers with Sue. And if you can't wait to see what I'm creating next, come back next Tuesday for Sewing in Slippers, and we will create something new together. So until then, let's focus on applique. Get yourself in that mindset to get that stitching done, and you will have beautiful applique quilts in no time at all. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Send these to me, please, Karen. Okay, Karen, send me an email so I'll remember to do that after I get off of Facebook Live. Take care, everybody. Have a fabulous day, and I'll see you next Tuesday, or I'll see you this Thursday for Applique School. Bye, everyone.